Good morning, everyone. Well, maybe it's just morning. If it's anything like what I can see outside my window in front of me, it is once again bucketing with rain, and boy, is it windy. So, to all of you, welcome to Solid Ground. I can see some comments coming through, and I'll get to those in a moment. But I'm especially thinking of those who are being affected by this weather across New Zealand, particularly our farmers. I've been talking to a few over the last couple of weeks and asking, have you had enough rain? And the short answer is yes, they've had plenty. And so we're now into very dangerous territory where far too much rain actually becomes a major problem. And for many others of you, particularly if you're in Nelson and Tasman, I understand things are pretty bad down there. So thinking of everyone affected by this weather today, as I say, here in Auckland, bucketing down and exceptionally windy. Hey guys, Solid Ground is where we talk the issues of the day, things which have caught my attention. And I try, always have to stress that word, I try to bring a good or a solid foundation, a solid ground, if you will, of good philosophy, ethics, theology to the discussions. And my hope is often trying to explain and give some context to what you won't often hear in mainstream media or general political discourse. But of course, this show is live. You will be viewing this, if you're watching, across an array of platforms, everything from X to Instagram, Substack, through of course to Facebook and YouTube. If you want to comment, and I'm about to put some up, if you want to comment live to me here in the studio, you can do so by jumping onto Family First's YouTube channel or Family First's Facebook page. If you're on, for example, my Facebook page, wonderful to have you watching there. I'll get to read your comments afterwards. But if you want to get a message to me in here in the studio, just like Michael has done, amongst others, you can. If you've got questions, challenges, thoughts, if there's something I'm discussing but you go, hey, talk about something else, let me know. To Harrison, always lovely to have you along. I hope you're doing okay. I won't say exactly where you are. I know where you are, but everyone else doesn't need to know. But I hope you're doing okay over there. To Edmund, good morning. Lovely to have you here. Catherine, as always, good morning. Jackie down there in Reitihi, lovely to have you along. I'm not surprised it's windy. Lynette, good morning. Hello, DD. We've got our first quote for the morning from Matthew 7, I think, 24 to 27. Good morning. Good morning to Ian. Lovely to have you along. Darren, yes. Oh, it is very wet. Fortunately, I cleared the drains out over the weekend. Sandra, lovely to have you here. Good morning. Dean is telling it sunny side up. Lovely. Dennis, lovely to have you along. Thank you for the text last night, keeping me well distracted as I was going away. I haven't quite worked out how to be on camera and keep my eyes focused. Peter's telling us that he thinks the rain's due to the Tongan eruption. I'm trying to remember how many years that ago. Oh, there we go. Thank you. See, DD's caught me out. Despite one of my majors at university, I did theology at Auckland Uni. One of my majors is scripture, but I have to admit, as my wife knows, and my stepson, I am absolutely hopeless on chapter and verse. I am absolutely terrible. One of my favouritely named people, Foo Dogs Trucking. A jolly good morning to all, and good morning. And look, Murray, hello. Look, it's lovely to have you all along. There's others coming through. I'll have to stop there, or otherwise I will spend all morning saying hello. Hey, but good to have you all along. As always, lots to discuss. A real mixture today. I'm going to actually start with something from overseas, which is a mix, what I would call a mixed story. It's exceptionally sad, but at the same time exceptionally hopeful. So if you know what's happening in Haiti, it's just god awful. Basically, it's a failed state and run by gangs. But this story caught my eye. Long and short, this young mum decided to keep her baby, and really I just wanted to share it as, amazing resilience by her, really. I mean, just an absolutely awful situation. But it's just pointing out that even when things are really dark, there can be a little bit of light. And I don't know, she'll have no idea of whom we are. She'll have no idea of this little program that comes out from New Zealand. But I just thought, what a story of resilience. And my hope is she has amazing family and friends around her to support her. But as we say, what's happening in Haiti at the moment is just absolutely devastating. But I just thought interesting that the BBC, I think this is from, chose to run the story. But kudos to her for making the decision to keep her child. One less victim, if you will. Speaking of victims, that's caught my eye last night. There's a few angles. This is again in the Congo. I think about 43 Christians were massacred by Islamic jihadists in a place called Kamanda. I think that might be the state rather than a town, but in Congo. And of those 43 killed, 9 were children. And I think all inside a church, which is absolutely tragic. Again, I think this is from the BBC. But you might remember I talked about other massacres the other week. And look, I don't take particular delight talking about this, but one of the reasons I do is you will find virtually no coverage of this in New Zealand media because it doesn't basically fit their narrative. So there's a few angles on this. First and foremost, if you are the type that does pray for those victims and their family, I think it's just absolutely horrendous. Beyond horrendous. Second, as I say, there's just no mainstream media coverage of this, certainly in New Zealand. And I think that's a wider point that you often hear me talking about here is you only get served a very select diet of information here in New Zealand from our mainstream media. It's strongly curated. So not only are there stories you just don't get told, in other situations you only get fed a particular diet. You only get one perspective. And you know that I've spoken before about things I've written on various, often international conflicts that just don't get published. Maybe it's because I'm a terrible writer, who knows? But, you know, it's only one side that you often get. In fact, I was struck last night watching the news as I quickly divert from this topic. When watching the news, and granted this is a political point, you don't have to support the government, you don't have to support National, it's not trying to do any propaganda for one side or the other. But I just noted the media, every story to do with the government, be it around healthcare issues, be it around removing the pay wave surcharge. And so the government's moved, as of yesterday, to say, look, we're going to pass some legislation to stop people charging that 2 or 2.5% when you use pay wave. They put the boot into that. Luxon was booed at the netball, which, to be honest, is not good. But again, there was just one negative story after the other to put the boot in. So the media are completely compromised. And I don't have the slide for it. But Bob, as in Bob McCoskey, sent me something yesterday, which was a snapshot of a poll from Stuff. So you know the Stuff website with the business which is stuffed. But according to a poll of who would you prefer to be Prime Minister, 53%, so you've heard me correctly, 53% said they would like Chris Hipkins. That's right, Chris Hipkins to be the Prime Minister. Now, no offence to Hipkins, but there is no way that 1 in every 2 New Zealanders, or 53% of us, think he'd make a good Prime Minister. But what it does tell you is the nature of people following Stuff, the people who are actively engaging with Stuff. It's very much to the left, very much progressives. And as I say, when I read, it's part of my role is to keep an eye on what's happening here in New Zealand and around the world for not just Family First, but other clients. You can just see the complete, almost total progressive bias. As I say, I've actually sent Stuff a second op-ed in recent days in response to other op-eds which are going off in one direction. I'm obviously going in another. Again, not published. And I don't say that with lament or frustration or sadness. It's just striking of what they will and won't publish. Again, you're only getting a curated feed, which is why I put this story here. The other is, it just shows the hypocrisy. It's the only word for it. The hypocrisy of not just our media, but our activists. Because what you have happening here in Congo and Nigeria, over not just the last few days or weeks, but over the last few years, is the systematic targeting of Christians by Muslims in Africa. Look, it's not unfamiliar to Africa. The north of Africa used to be Christian. They were basically wiped out. This is a standard tactic. It's been going on for centuries, and it's happening right in front of our eyes yet again. Nigeria, Congo in particular, but actually throughout much of Africa at the moment, that these, jihadists go in and just butcher everybody. Either believe in their faith or they'll kill you. It's pretty much simple, as I say. It's systematic. It's widespread. I think there are more martyrs in the Christian faith in this century, or last 100 years, sorry, I might phrase it more accurately, than there has been in any other time of the church's history. But as I say, you won't get that conversation in media. What happens to Christians, the persecution of Christians, it doesn't really matter. if you persecute someone else, look at them the wrong way, or as I wrote in the Substack a while back, use someone's wrong pronouns, all hell breaks loose. But, like here, kill 43 Christians, including 9 children, doesn't matter. Absolutely tragic and ongoing. And as I say, if you are the prayerful type, to keep the people of Nigeria and Congo in your prayers as they continue to suffer terribly. Murray says, I'm not sure which story it is, but Murray saying there's a tear in his eyes. Dean's noting how much money we've given to I pressed the wrong button again, the Clinton Foundation. Yeah, there's been a lot. Nigel says, good morning, lovely to have you along. DD saying a lot of Christian nations get hammered. I think they do, but also often ignored. Again, it's a form of persecution which is accepted. Step the wrong way onto a rainbow, pedestrian crossing, walk in front of a pride parade, as someone did recently, you're going to get it in the neck. But, kill a whole bunch of Christians, it's not really an issue for a lot of people, sadly, which is why I just raise it. I just want to put it into people's consciousness. Good morning, Viv. Lovely to have you along. There's so many. There's so many. Rosie's asking if Hipkins had been at the netball. That's actually a fascinating question. I honestly don't know, but I will say the booing is symptomatic of wider problems. I personally worry at moments like that you've got to retrieve it as a politician. You can turn these things around. And you can do it, it's not so much easily, but you have to do it relatively quickly, or else it becomes just part of the narrative. And probably a long way of saying, if National and Luxon are not careful, this will become something that everyone does, because it becomes sort of the done thing, the funny thing, and that's more trouble. Food dogs, trucking, more like stuff. Look, I think they are, as a business. DD's noting short memories, absolutely. Entity Kingdom, how corrupt the media is. I think in a lot of ways, unfortunately so, but I think the key in my mind is we just have to be, discerning. There we go, I've got my English back. We have to be discerning. And that's probably one of the key messages I always try to give people. You don't have to believe anything I say. You can have very different perspectives to what I think, and I'm quite relaxed with that. I think it's really just an encouragement to make sure you engage, read, and watch widely. I know it's just a constant theme from me, but there's just so much information that you don't get. And we're not talking conspiracy stuff here. It's just information that you just do not receive, perspectives in media which don't give a fuller picture. And good morning to Chris, one of my very loyal followers right from the start. Lovely to have you along, Chris. Good morning. Good morning. Cough. Now, yes, I thought I'd just update on this. You might remember, I think it was last week. It all blends. Last week I talked about this player, Catalan Vahaka'alo. I think I've said that right. Mixture of New Zealand, Māori and Tongan. I mentioned how she had this message on her hand, land back. So it's basically the call for all land in New Zealand to be returned to Māori, which in itself is an interesting concept. But what I didn't realise, which is why I'd put it back up, is that's tattooed on her hand. I thought she just used a vivid or a marker or whatever one wants to call them. It's actually a tattoo on her hand. And, people are free to do what they want, but I have to say it indicates a level of radicalisation, and I think a lack of self-perception to do that. Clearly, someone who's tied their identity to political grievance, and bad news for Catalan. If she continues down that path, I think she's going to have a very miserable, angry life. And not simply because of the land back issue. We can actually park all of that to the side. I just have found out about you guys, people who base their life on grievance and have to make sure it's seen loud and clear, like doing it on your hand. Again, I just feel a bit sorry for her, really. Again, I'm not going to get into the politics of the call that somehow everyone wants their land back, though I will say I thought there was a delicious irony that she's part Tongan, I understand. And if she's got any understanding of Tongan history, and I mean, amazing, wonderful, proud culture. But I know when I lived in Fiji, the Fijians talked a lot about how the Tongans would come across and attack and so forth. So maybe a suggestion for Catalan, she can put on her other hand reparations now, which will refer to her, because she and her Tongan ancestors might need to pay back a lot of money to the likes of the Fijians that I lived with that her people attacked. It could make a good compliment to her right hand there. Anyway, I just thought that was both sad and funny at the same time, but yeah, again, tattooed on your hand. I mean, honestly, that's commitment to a cause. Good for her at one level, but the major point which, I talked about last week about this is the utter double standard that you have in and around politics and sport. You are more than welcome, as we say, you are more than welcome to have a political view on Indigenous rights, Māori issues, you name it, any of the progressive grievances. New Zealand Rugby in this case will happily celebrate. But if you want to be like Israel Folau or Maria Folau, if you want to be like the English rugby football captains at the moment who are refusing to wear pride icons, then, well, too bad. They're going to punish you anyway. You're not allowed to. It's always going to be this double standard. So I just think that's quite striking. And speaking of that, this week, I think tomorrow I'm going to drop this, as in it's going to be released. This is a podcast with the UK lawyer Paul Conrath, who's actually represented sports players who refuse to wear rainbow armbands. This is both Christian and Muslims. He's also defending the players that wrote "I love Jesus" on their armband, or refused to wear their laces. He's also successfully done a case where he's taken a police force, I think it's the Northumbria police force, to court, again successfully, for being part of pride parades. He said, no, this is not on. You're meant to be impartial, and even more so on controversial issues. So he's won his case. Fascinating discussion. Paul was on holiday at the time, but very kindly spoke to me. So that's, quite incredible. I think it's really, really amazing. Harrison's asking, I've got to find my screen again, a very good question from Harrison. Is she allowed free speech? The short answer is yes. So Harrison, in this case, I actually, if she wants to tattoo land back onto her hand for time in perpetuity, go for it. And she's allowed to have opinions onto these and any matters. I think my point has been, and others have made it too, is the hypocrisy in New Zealand sport. Because if someone wrote a different message on their hand, they'd be punished. And we've seen that with the likes of Israel and Maria Folau. And I was just mentioning those sports players overseas who wear various messages on their armband. So it's basically Sports New Zealand and other sports codes taking political sides. They'll allow one side to be activists, to wear their symbols to make a lot of noise. Others they'll punish. So I'm all for free speech. If people, want to be able... I better back the horse up. I'm for free speech. In sport, personally, I think we just keep a lot of that out. Politics and sport shouldn't mix. But you'll see the hypocrisy right in front of you here, where she's allowed to press her political view, which is somehow everyone owes her everything. But if someone came with a different message, saying, I don't know, I support ACT or I support Winston Peters, they would be marched off the court, if you will. So it's just the double standard. That's really what I'm trying to get at. And Dee Dee's nailed it. It's the hypocrisy in play. So importantly, Harrison, not saying that she shouldn't be allowed to have a view on these things. She's welcome to. Again, personally, I find it a little bit extreme. You tattoo your hand. Again, I think it just says something about her. And, I'm not shy of an opinion. I think she's going to have quite a miserable life with that sort of general attitude. But she's allowed to have it. It's called free speech. Speaking of free speech... hold on. I actually jumped past a whole pile of comments here. Actually, they're all pretty much the same. Free speech is absolute, but it needs to go both ways. That's from Peter. Yeah, I think that's the key point for me. And Jackie saying the media don't have to highlight it. I think that's just actually the added part to all of this, guys. Again, it's the double standard. You can think of other messages. If someone put, I love Jesus on their hand, they'd probably have to wear a glove. Sports New Zealand, Rugby New Zealand would not allow it in a heartbeat. So it's the double standard, but you're right. Mainstream media is more than happy to amplify. So in her case, they do it in a way that's very supportive. Cast your mind back to Maria and Israel Folau. And I'll put this up because a reminder, Bob has an exclusive, the first interview with Israel and Maria Folau about what happened to them. Remember, he had an opinion. Again, you don't have to agree with it. But they absolutely pilloried him. They pummeled him and Maria to a pulp because he had an opinion. And again, this is that wider dynamic that we just keep encouraging you to see with media. And look, you're welcome to apply the same lens to myself and the work I do here on my podcast and Substack. Just be aware of how the media does clearly take sides. On these things. But yeah, just a reminder, Forum on the Family. It's now not even a month away. So come and join us. It's going to be amazing. Well, I think it will be. Hey, last story I thought I'd touch on today, because once again, time flies by. I've got actually a lot of time for Bryce Edwards. I've interviewed him on a podcast before. He very much leans to the left politically, but that's perfectly fine. You can have good conversation. So Bryce is an academic based out of Wellington, out of Victoria University. But he's recently set up something called the Integrity Institute. And I've taken this information from The Good Oil. This is Cam Slater's website. And I encourage you actually to go and have a read more fully, because Cam's done a really good job of delving into this. So long and short, Bryce set up the Integrity Institute to look at the influence of lobbying in New Zealand. Which, to me, first and foremost looked okay. But it's been interesting as people have delved further into who's funding it. Again, people are welcome to fund whatever they want, but it's quite an elderly couple who are very politically monological. They've got a singular view, which often a lot of donors people giving to the National Party are hardly going to support Labour and vice versa. But look, highly funded by these people. But what's caught the attention, and I'll put this up so people can read. This is from Kiwi Blog, so this is David Farrar speaking. But on Newsroom, so one of our media sites, usually quite compromised, I find, in its reporting, sometimes some really good stuff. But they've started a series looking at lobbying in New Zealand. They've started targeting the farming lobby. And what is striking is actually the Institute, the Integrity Institute, have paid Newsroom to do the reporting. So you heard that right. An outside group has effectively bought the newspaper to report as they want them to. Now that latter part, they'll say, no. Newsroom say, no, we're not compromised at all. Yes, we've accepted thousands and thousands of dollars to write this, but we're just going to do it ourselves. We're doing the reporting ourselves. Well, we're calling BS on this. Because I can see Simply Green's just put up a comment, which I'll, because Simply Green and others, you guys summarise me much better. They're paying for influence, which is ironic, because of course the Institute is blathering on so loudly about lobbying when they're lobbying themselves. They are buying access, in this case, into the media. In fact, we've seen this a lot. Auckland University, by the way, when you see a lot of their commentary, it's all been bought for. The university gives money. And so the likes of newsrooms, I think, cannot claim to be actually an impartial media outlet. They're just guns for hire, reporters who are mercenary. And you see that in a lot of their reports. But the backers of the Integrity Institute, I think, they're very left-wing, I think very hot on environmental issues, which is why the first topic, lo and behold, is about the farming industry, because they don't like farmers. So they're attacking federated farmers. They're attacking anyone who happens to have a view around farming. They go very softly on iwi, very striking. Iwi are the most active lobbying groups in New Zealand, but Newsroom, being quite woke, delicately move around that one, but attack federated farmers and others. The other thing, I think Farrar sums it up perfectly. They are taking money from a lobby group for editorial direction. Look, any lobby group can pay to put in an ad. That's perfectly fine in my thinking. And look, Harrison, I think we all know what he means, but he summed it up perfectly well too. Buying advertising is one thing, but when you are buying editorial control, it's another. And look, they will swear black and blue there's no editorial control. But as Harrison put it, it's bullshit. It's just not feasible. And as David Farrar pointed out, Cam Slater and others, you imagine if this was the New Zealand Institute or Family First buying editorial, effectively control of the Herald or stuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The other is, and kudos to Cam. I did a podcast with him a few weeks back on his own one. He was interviewing me, but He's dug into the Integrity Institute's trust document. And it itself makes fascinating reading because it's so highly politically compromised. It is targeting particular groups. So it's not even trying to pretend to be neutral, to go, look, approach all lobbying groups and understand how they work. No. It's an obsessive target with the right wing. The Maxim Institute, Taxpayer Union, basically, amongst others, by the way, New Zealand Institute, they're asking Bryce, they're paying Bryce to dig up dirt on their opponents. And I think we should, to a degree, be quite worried by this, not because of what they'll find, but just how militant these groups are. So I just think it's, as Dee Dee said, it's just rank hypocrisy. And as Simply Green's noting, you don't hand that much money over without editorial control. And it's already clear because the first two items on Newsrooms are perfectly aligned with what the Integrity Institute and their backers want. So look, we already knew Newsroom was compromised. As say, they've been accepting tens of thousands from the University of Auckland, for example, to run their content, which is why you get all the stuff from Anne Salmon and others all the time. It's not because they have much merit in their arguments. It's simply because they're paid. So good to call that out. Of course, jumping because we better conclude. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. No, you can always watch, read and listen. A big thank you to you wonderful donators and supporters. We have no paywalls here at Family First. You can get to all our content, whether you like it or not, for free. And so thank you to all our wonderful donors. As I say, obviously you're watching this now, but all the past episodes, Straight Talk, Political Playback, the podcasts are all online. You can obviously read. We're very busy putting out our content there. And of course you can listen. We're on Spotify and other areas. Bob is back from the States now, so our morning shows continue every morning, which is fantastic. This podcast, well, this is always going to be up, but this is the current podcast with Alistair Rose, awardee of the New Zealand Bravery Star. He was the one who shot Graham Burton many years ago and then saved his life, for which he got the Bravery Star. But he talks about how he's now working with something called the Blue Hope Foundation, where they support depressed cops, those with PTSD, those who are suicidal. Quite inspirational. As I say, the next podcast dropping tomorrow is with Paul Conrath. Amazing discussion about how they're pushing back against wokery there, which is fantastic. Bob and I continue to write. So Bob's got his latest Substack up of how companies actually are pushing away from things woke, and I've just published in the last hour my Substack around actually the electoral law changes, and not so much about the law change itself, but I'm talking around how it's just go and read it. It's just how the woke use one argument almost all the time. That's why I call it the vanguard argument. You'll have to jump online to check it out. Hey guys, as always, lovely to have you on here. I'll be back again on Thursday morning. Bob, of course, will be here tomorrow morning, and I look forward to, well, as always, talking to you. Thank you for all your amazing comments. Have a wonderful day and stay dry.